Welcome to the July 2025 edition of the Inside Nutley Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Greco, and today we are joined by beloved Nutley coach and educator, Joe Affinito. A mainstay in the Nutley school system for over 40 years, Coach Affinito has served the community as a physical education teacher, media coordinator, head and assistant baseball coach, assistant football coach, athletic director, and vice principal. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you, Thomas. Good to see you.
Right off the bat, I'm going to put you on the spot. Of all the teams you coached over the 4 decades, which one was your favorite? Not the best, but your favorite.
That's like impossible to answer. It really is. Coaching was a godsend for me. I can't tell you one team over another. It's tough to answer. I can't bring anything up off the top of my head because it's all there. There'd be more than one group of kids. It really would. I'd spent, the first 9 years as the freshman coach, so I got to know those kids as young kids. And then when I got to the varsity, we won. We had the state sectional, so it's tough to say. But the freshman kids, they were my kids, and so there was 9 classes there. So I can't pick one out of the other. But we had almost, I think, out of 9 seasons. I'm pretty sure we had 9 winning seasons for the freshmen. Could be mistaken on 1 year. I think the last year I did freshman football, I screwed up on a call, and I know we lost that game, and I don't remember if we finished 4-4 or 3-5, and that was my last official duty as a freshman coach. That's for football.
Okay, second part of that. Tell me about some of your favorite players.
When I got the job at Paul VI, I took kids that had played for me at Nutley and coaches that I had coached with at Nutley. So, matter of fact, the year that we went to the state playoffs at Paul VI, Nutley went into the state playoffs too. And in the Nutley Sun, there was an article said 2 Nutley teams go to the state playoffs. I took as coaches with me. I took 2 kids, Mario Peluso and Vito Cucci. Jimmy Spazzato coached with us for a year. Coaches I took were Pat Keating, Carmen DeLoya, Coach Stephen DiGregorio. I gave him his first coaching job. Bobby Smith was our film man. He filmed some of our games. He was in that first 9 years, so I can't tell you exactly what year. I don't want to leave anybody out. Greg Nichols, he came as a trainer, coach type thing. So those are people that I remember. Kids, there's thousands. I remember one story I can tell you. I remember once when my son was born, I had a freshman team, and that group of kids snuck a bottle of whiskey into the school to give me his congratulations for having my firstborn was my son. And that group was with Artie Scavone and George Cruz and Bruce Humiston, and I'm going to see
And our commissioner, Joe Scarpelli.
Joe Scarpelli was on that team, right? I don't want to forget anybody. I don't want these guys to see this and hate me, but that group of kids gave me, and we kept that bottle for years. I kept the bottle, So, and they gave it to me with the silver whistle around the bottle.
That's great.
So that was one group of kids. But I loved them all.
I know we can't talk about everybody, but I think if there's one person that deserves to be talked about, it's Coach Steve DiGregorio, another Nutley coaching legend. Steve and I, we were 1 year apart in school, and we were friends throughout the years, but he holds a very dear place in my heart because my sister passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2018. I came up with the idea to create a scholarship in her name for a player on the Nutley football team. And I gave Steve a call, and he was all in, and together we created this scholarship that I think we've given away, close to $30,000 so far in the last 7 years. So there wouldn't be a scholarship without Coach DiGregorio. So he was just one of a kind.
But he was a great kid. A great kid, and then we stayed friendly. I stayed friendly with mostly all the kids. Coaching was a good experience. I made many more friends than enemies. I can't say the same thing about when I became the vice principal, but as far as being the coach, many more friends than enemies. And Stephen was just a great kid, a good athlete. He stayed in touch when he got out of college. He was looking to get into teaching and coaching, and I gave him his first coaching job. And he coached with me, with Peluso and Cucci at met Paul VI, and so I stayed in touch with him over the years, and obviously it was a tragedy what happened to him, and just recently to his son. So that's it.
Okay, let's go back in the time machine. Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Paterson, New Jersey.
What was that like growing up?
Much different than what people think of Paterson, New Jersey now. It was a great town. Everybody who graduated with me and in those years was a great place to live back then. You know, and I'm not putting a knock on the town now, but it was entirely different than what you see now. As it was Newark and was East Orange and so forth. So I graduated high school in 1962. Started grade school in 1950. It's a long time. The world was a lot different. The state was different. The cities were different. You know, and it was a great place to live.
Was it a typical 50s upbringing?
Oh yeah. Well, the town was sort of like Nutley, divided up into neighborhoods. And where was an Italian neighborhood? Where was an Irish neighborhood? Where was a Jewish neighborhood? So obviously I lived in 2 of the Italian neighborhoods. And there was a great time. Great time.
You attended Paterson Central High School, correct?
I went to Paterson Central, played football and baseball there, and
Were you good at sports?
I was good enough to play and good enough to start, so that was it. You know.
Then you headed to Montclair State.
And I go to Montclair State, right.
Did you play sports there?
I played sports there. I obviously didn't have the same success in college as I did in high school, but it was great to be on the teams and play. I played football and baseball there.
At what point did you decide you wanted to be a teacher or a coach?
When you go in, you have to pick a major, obviously, so I picked physical education, and I didn't know if I was going to like it or not as far as being a teacher or whatever. And after I graduate, then you have to find a job, and so I went out, and actually I wound up in Nutley by accident. I had a job offer, one in West Paterson, which is now Woodland Park, which I had the job, and then I had a job offer in Wayne, which I had the job. And why didn't I take those jobs? Because both jobs were taken away when I couldn't get a deferment. Vietnam was hot and heavy. So everybody was getting drafted and this and that. I had no idea. Well, I can't say I had no idea about Nutley because Paterson Central played Nutley High School. And actually when I came to Nutley and to start coaching, Jack Suffren was keeping the book for Nutley, the sports books, back when I was playing. And he showed me stats and statistics of me playing against Nutley High School. And I actually, one time, Dr. Von Roth was playing for Nutley while I was playing for Paterson Central, and we had a good laugh over that. And I hope he doesn't get mad at me. He went 0 for 3, and I went 1 for 3. So I wound up in Nutley strictly by accident. Dr. Fleischer and Mr. Fowler were the superintendents and assistant superintendents. They called and asked me to come in for an interview. Your name was stayed on a list at Montclair State that you had no job. And I said outright, look, I'm not coming for an interview. I've already had 2 job offers. Looks like I'm going to get drafted. I'm going to waste your time and my time. I don't want to get another job offer and the job is, taken away. They said, but by this point, it had gotten kind of late into the summer. And we were already into August. They needed a teacher. And they said, well, we'd like to come for the interview because it's kind of late and that might be a reason why that they might give you a deferment for a year or 2. And I guess the gentleman who I replaced, he became a guidance counselor at some other district, and so I replaced him. And when I went for the interview, they said, okay, things went well, and it was going to be an elementary school job. I got to be honest with you, I wasn't happy about being in the elementary school. The 2 other offers I had were both at junior high schools, which were grades 7, 8, and 9, which was more appealing to me at that point. But anyhow, I got the job, and I said, okay, it's up to you guys, but now I can't tell you if I'm going to stay or not. And they did get me a deferment because it was so late in the year. And the deferment actually lasted for 3 years. They got me 3 different times. Each year for some reason, but Vietnam was still going on. And finally I couldn't get a deferment anymore, and they hired I'm the reason why Nutley had an elementary school phys ed teacher in each school. At that time, I started at Spring Garden and Radcliffe. I split schools. And there was 4 phys ed teachers, and we would split the 5 schools at the elementary level. When I'm going to get drafted, no more deferments, they hired a 5th teacher. At that point, that was it. And I wound up putting my name on the Air Force list, going to the Air Force. I had my name on a Coast Guard list, but Air Force called, and they said they would take me. And they said, but at this point I was 24, I guess, and they said, but we're taking younger guys, so we're going to keep your name on our list, and as we need you, we'll call you. And I hate to say I got lucky, but I got lucky. I didn't get called, and then the lottery system started, and I was actually too old. The kids that were 17, 18, no, not 17, 18, 19, their names were going into the lottery, and I was past that point, so I sort of lucked out. Didn't go to Vietnam.
Was that a scary time for you?
Yeah.
You had already been teaching for a couple of years in the system when you became a football coach. How did that come about?
I was dying to coach, and being at the elementary school was not great because I didn't get to know any of the coaches or whatever. And every year I would apply to either a football job or a baseball, if anything was open. Sometimes there was nothing open. And then I guess it was 1969, the head football job opened up at Nutley, and I applied for it. And they called me in, and they said, are you crazy? You're 24 years old, you've never coached or anything. I said, well, I want you to get to meet me and this and that. I know I'm not ready for a head coaching job, and that year the staff had just changed. That was the first year that John Federici came in. And so I came in on his staff, and when I got there, who do I meet? It was Carmen DeLoya. Carmen DeLoya and I had been at Montclair State together. Matter of fact, a quick funny story, and Carmen's going to appreciate this because I've been telling it for 50 years. We had spring football, and I make 2 decent runs, pretty good runs, and the coach said, nice run, DeLoya, both times. And I took my helmet off, and I said, my name is Affinito, I'm not DeLoya. So that was a funny story there, and then I got to meet Bill Farkas, who I actually knew because he had married a woman who I knew from Paterson, and so I knew him, and then I got to meet the rest of the staff. Danny Kimberly, Larry Zacchi was a great guy. Larry Zacchi, super guy. We lost him a couple of years ago too. Took 3 years before the job opened, and then when Federici comes in, the whole staff was a turnover. They allowed him to bring in his people or whatever, and I started with the freshman team. Carmen DeLoya was the head freshman coach. I was his assistant. We had a great time. I mean, we knew each other for all the years. Matter of fact, when I got to Nutley, when I got the job, I said, and he started after me. He was actually teaching in Elmwood Park. I said, what the hell are you doing here? He said, they just called me. I'm leaving Elmwood Park. I'm coming to teach and coach. I said, you're going to coach here? I said, I've been here for 3 years. He said, well, we'll see what happens. And that happened to be the same year that they changed the staff over. And I don't remember if Carmen was 1 year with the old staff, which would have been John Biviano's staff, I believe, or if he started with Federici too. But Carmen and I had the freshman team. The next year, Carmen moved up. Somebody left, and then I had the freshman team. And Pat Keating was my assistant for quite a few years. Pat did serve in Vietnam, and Pat came back from Vietnam, and he was my assistant. So I was always felt a little guilty that my father had served in World War II, was a Silver Star award winner. Not that that's an award, and my son served in Iraq. So I always thought Pat did a great thing. I got lucky and didn't go.
Pat was a piece of work.
Yeah. He was a good guy, but he was a piece of work, yes.
Those early 70s football teams were pretty stacked.
Oh, yes.
Best memories from that time?
Well, I'm always going to remember the Westfield game, 0-0 Westfield. Great game. The stadium was packed. Mario Cacciola was the head coach at that point. Everybody from Nutley swears that we were in. Officials didn't see it that way. And that was a great game. I remember that game very well. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, the very next week, Westfield got beat and Nutley got beat.
Coach, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Were we in the end zone?
Well, on the film, I don't know. If they had instant replay nowadays, you'd be able to tell. I can't. It was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough, Plus now it's breaking the plane. Back then you had to pretty much make sure you were in the end zone. I actually can tell you two funny stories about coaching freshman football if you want to hear.
Sure.
Mark Cafone was a running back for us. He played with, I can't remember the class ago. I remember he was with DeBarbary and Jimmy Parmigiano. I remember those guys being on that team. I apologize to anybody that thinks I'm not, this is off the top of my head, but we had a scrimmage game. and we were scrimmaging in Boys Park against Wayne Valley. And the coach at Wayne Valley was a friend of mine who just passed away last week. And we played high school football together, and he was the head coach of their freshman team. And Marcofone breaks a run going down the sideline, down the right sideline, going to be a touchdown. Now remember, it's only a scrimmage. Well, all the parents are there, and it's at the Boys Park, so there's no seats or whatever. And his parents are there with his dog, which was a sheepdog. And the dog recognizes Mark in the uniform, runs across the field, God's honest truth, and tackled him right on the field. And the whole place went up in hysterics. It was great. So, but we did win that scrimmage. And I know that only because I remember that incident and the fact that we were coaching against a personal friend of mine. So that was it. And the second time with the freshman football story, I can tell you, I used to make, as you know, kids run laps, especially if they were goofing off from practice or whatever. And Vito Cucci, who has become a great friend of mine, he would hide behind the backstop with Frankie Molinaro. And they would hide. But, you know, unbeknownst to them, when the other kids would come back, they would say, "Coach, two guys are hiding behind the backstop." And I would walk up there and I said, "You guys waiting for something?" And they ran extra laps. And that was a tough group of kids. That was a real tough group of kids. So
Yeah.
talk about kids, those first two freshman group of kids, I don't know, maybe because of my first year of coaching, they really seemed very tough, very aggressive. My first year that I was doing the head, everybody wanted to be a running back. I had no lineman. And it made, like Frankie Gabriel became a lineman because he wanted to be a fullback. And we had other guys that could do running the ball. I don't remember, once again, I might be mixing the kids with the teams, but Dave Verdi and Mascara and Donnie Kiwar. And I'm just pulling these names out of my hat, but I remember those were the same type of bird. Frankie Gabriel became a great tackle, along with Mario Benameo. Charlie Potter was tough as nails. Lost him too.
I think the best running back I ever saw play for Nutley was a kid named Don Kloss. Do you remember him?
Well, Donnie Kloss, he was with the varsity when I was the freshman. So I only saw him play on Saturdays if I wasn't scouting, because the freshman coaches did a lot of scouting. Sal Alivo was with the varsity. He was a senior, and then he actually became a board member. He was a great guy. Always got along very well with him as a kid and as a parent. And his brother Frankie played for me as a freshman. I remember your class. I remember one game with you. I don't know if you remember it. We were playing at the Oval. I can't remember who we played. We ran the same play, the first two plays of the game. And on the third play, we ran a pass off of that play, and it went for a touchdown. So the third play of the game, you were the quarterback, was a touchdown.
Are you sure that was me?
It wasn't you? Weren't you quarterback?
Freshman year.
Yeah.
That was it.
You didn't quarterback for me?
I did, freshman year.
Yeah, I'm talking about freshman team.
Oh.
Yeah, we ran, it was an off-tackle play from the left halfback. We ran over the right tackle. We ran the same play twice in a row.
Right.
And the third play, we faked it.
And I
You rolled out and you throw a touchdown
to Ronnie
pass.
Evans, I think it was.
Right.
Okay.
So that was you. So you can leave that in.
Okay.
And so I remember you throwing that.
Coach, I must admit, I think that was my first and last highlight of my high school sports career.
Can I give you one more funny freshman football story? Artie Scavone. He's our freshman quarterback. Artie, who was a freshman quarterback, he was a running back time he was a sophomore. He was a linebacker by the time he was a junior. He was a tackle by the time he was a senior. So he had just gotten bigger and bigger. But this funny story, when Artie was a freshman, we're playing, I believe it was Irvington in the Oval, and close game, 6-0, whatever. And call a timeout. Artie comes over. I'm talking to him on the sideline. I said, "Listen, when you go in, tell the guys to tighten up their splits." I said, "We're getting too much penetration. Tell them to tighten up their splits." Artie turned and said to me, "Tell that to us? Our guys or their guys?" I said, "Our guys. Who do you think I'm talking about?"
At the same time you were coaching football in Nutley, you were also the baseball coach. How did that come about?
Same thing. It was actually the same year. Carmen Lemma was the head baseball coach. They were looking for 2 assistants. I think Pat Antonelli was one of his assistants and just got a guidance job, so he couldn't coach at that time. If you were guidance, you couldn't coach. And I forget who his other assistant was, but they both left. So the same year, that September, I started football. That spring, I started baseball. And Carmen, I had got to know him a little bit, having coached now and been in the high school, although Carmen was in the middle school. But I got to meet him, and he gave me my choice. He said, "You want to take the freshman or JV?" And I just come from coaching the freshman. I said, "I'll take the freshman." He said, "It's up to you." He said, "But I think you're going to do better with the JV. This way you're moving yourself up. It gives you a little bit more of an older kid to work with. The strategy is a little different. You can do a little bit more coaching to an advanced level." So I took the JVs and stayed with him until things changed there too. The first staff was Carmen Lemma. Chuck Martin was the freshman coach. I was the JV coach. Then Chuck Martin got left for a basketball job, I believe, or whatever. And then Murph Flanagan coached with the freshmen with us one year. And so it was Murph, myself, and Carmen. And then Bruce Gallagher, myself, and Carmen. And then that was my end of my baseball until I came back from Paula VI.
What were some of your favorite baseball teams or players during that time?
I enjoyed them all, once again. But I left Nutley to get the head football job at Paula VI. After I had gotten the football job at Paula VI, Paula VI was looking for a baseball coach. They asked me if I was interested. And of course it was the head coaching job, and I said, yeah, I was. And I stayed there, and I was pretty successful. So we had some very good teams there. And then I stopped coaching at Paula VI baseball because my son was going to high school, wanted to watch some of his games. And John Jacone called me in, and he says, "We need a baseball coach. You're it." I said, "Nah, Mr. Jacone." I said, I did my share. I want to, take some time, watch my son. He said, "I want you to take the job." True story. I said, "Well," I said, "try to get somebody else." This was in the fall of that year, whatever the year it was. It must have been '89, I guess. So he said, "Okay." I said, "If you don't have anybody by the spring, I'll help you out." I said, "But you're going to try to find somebody." And John said, "Okay." Well, at the end of February, John Jacone calls me down to the office and says, "Guess what? I didn't find anybody." Now, I don't know if he even looked for anybody, but I became the head baseball coach. And so we had a state sectional championship there.
Tell me about that team.
That was a great team. I remember the sectional final that we won. The last inning was great inning, great baseball. Mike Butler, Michael King, Chris Martin, Mike Salvanto, Sal Tremmel, Michael Higgins played for me, but the year before. And that's when we started to get good. They had a couple of losing seasons in a row. We still had a losing season my first year, but we got hot at the end of the season. Things started to gel. Michael Higgins was the coach, the catcher on that team. So we go to the next year, and we had put it together. And the next year too, we had 3 very good years in a row. But anyhow, the team that won, and I don't want to forget Brian Macheski and Larry Mose, who played for me the year after, which we actually had a better record, but got knocked out of the state sectionals. Anyhow, we played Ridge High School, and Sal Tremmel was the starting pitcher, and we took the lead, and we held the lead, and we had a couple of bunt sacrifices. The game was really, really a good game. We get down to the last inning, and we're the visitor, and we go into the bottom of the 9th. Ridge is getting up, and I could look it up if I had to, but the score was either 5-2 or 5-3. And Tremmel has gone the whole game. And Sal was a good pitcher, but if he got in a little trouble, he would get annoyed if you were going to take him out. The first batter in the 7th inning, bottom of the 7th, hits a hard shot to second base. We make an error, and there's a runner on first. So that's it. We still have a 2 or 3 run lead. Still have 3 outs to get. God's honest truth. The next guy gets up, hits a fly ball, we get an out. Next one, fly ball, we drop it. Now there's runners on first and second. Only 1 out, and we're in trouble. And we're in trouble. And I go out to the mound, and Sal Tremmel, the first thing he says to me is, "You're not taking me out." And I said, "Calm down." That was a big thing that I had always, "Calm down, I'm not taking you out. This is not your fault. We're doing our best. We're still in the lead. We've got to get the next 2 outs, and we're going to be the sectional champion." And so I took some time, stayed with him on the mound until the umpire told me to get out because I wanted him to really calm down because he was obviously quite ticked. So the next batter hits a pop-up. It's a ground rule out. Infield fly. Infield fly pop-up. So we're down to 2. So we have 2 on, 2 out. Next batter up hits a towering drive to center field. This is extra bases all the way. Score's either going to be tied or they're ahead. Like I said, I don't remember if we're up 2 or 3. And this shot is gone. Michael Butler makes a great catch. We win the game.
That was for the championship?
Pardon me?
Was that for the championship?
That was the state section, right. And then we got to the states and we got beaten the states. But the state sectional we won at Ridge High School. They were the higher seed. And that was it.
You were also the Essex County Baseball Coach of the Year. What did that mean to you?
That was a great honor. It was a great honor, like I said. But we had a great team. So if you have good material and you're half-assed good coach, you're gonna win. So I had a good team.
Then you stepped down prematurely. Well, what happened there?
I coached 3 years. 3. And like I said, the first year was Higgins was on the team, and we came on tough at the end. We finished 10 and 14. But they had a 3 losing season back. Then we had the state championship team. Then the next year with Larry Mose, we had a better record, but we got knocked out. And then John called me down. He said, "Joe, you got to let a coach go." And I said, "Why?" He said, "The budget's being cut." I said, "I'm not letting a coach go." I said, "You asked me to help out." I said, "You did a good job." I said, "I'm glad as hell I took the game, the job. I wound up with a state sectional champion, the trophies in the trophy case." I said, "I can't let somebody go." Tommy Gargiulo was coaching with me, Don Toby, John Colicchio. I said, "It's not right." So he said, so I actually offered to take a cut in salary, and I said I would approach the other coaches if they would take a little bit of a cut and try to make up some of the money. I couldn't make up all the money of the full coaching staff, but that didn't fly. So I did my turn, and I gave it up. I had 3 good teams there, and had they not decided to cut the staff, I would have stayed a little bit longer. How much longer, I don't know. But
that kind of brings up the question that I think a lot of people from my era who went to Nutley High and played under you always wondered, why weren't you ever given the opportunity to be the head coach of the Nutley football team?
I applied, I guess, twice, and I didn't get the job. That's when I applied to Paul VI.
Were you ever given a reason why? I mean, no one was more qualified than you.
Did I ever get a reason? No, they thought they had somebody better. One time that I'm trying to think which jobs. Farkas. Carmen the lawyer and I and Bill Farkas all applied for the job. Bill Farkas got the job. I stayed, and then the next year I got the job at Paul VI, and Carmen the lawyer came with me to Paul VI. Then I came back to Nutley when Pete LaBarbiera was coaching. I coached there with Pete, with the varsity, and then Richie Sanfilippo came in, and I was the head baseball coach at that time when Richie came in, so I kept the baseball job, and I became Richie's defensive coordinator, so I had a lot to say, a lot of input. I had two Grecos played for me at that time, Michael and Anthony. Michael was a linebacker. Good story about Michael. He wound up on two big sacks he had. I had stunted Michael. One, he ran right into the kid, and I said, "You owe me that one." And another one, he knocked the kid down. The kid fumbled, and Soleri, not Donald, Mike Soleri picked up the fumble and ran it in for a touchdown against St. Joe's, I believe it was. We beat St. Joe's in the Oval. So those were two other Grecos that played for me.
As you mentioned, you left for Paul VI to become the head football coach in 1979.
Hadn't got the job in Nutley, so I applied for the job in Paul VI. And I was lucky enough to get the job, and I got it at the wrong time. I come in to a team that had only young kids left. Nobody had played, and we took our lumps. We got beat. I think we finished 2-7. Not I think, I know we finished 2-7. And that's when I brought, like I said, I had all the people from Nutley coaching with me, and I'm pretty sure I didn't leave any of them out. But the second year we did a little better, and then we had 4 great seasons: 6-3, 8-1, 6-3, 5-4. We were really rolling, and we went to the state playoffs. We got beat by Pope John, who was a powerhouse, and I thought we were going to be able to beat him, but we didn't. But so we had some good teams there. We got to the state playoffs. We won the football championship, the league championship, 2 of those years. We also won the years I was there for baseball, we won 2 of the baseball championships too. And one of the baseball teams and one of the football teams at Paula 6, they both had undefeated seasons in league play, not overall, but in league play. So I got fortunate. I got the job. One of my biggest accomplishments in coaching was I seemed to be able to connect with the kids. So we had some good teams. We went to the playoffs. We had, like I said, 4 winning seasons in a row. I have some kids that, just like I stay in touch with the kids from Nutley, I have kids from Paula 6th. Matter of fact, when I was at Paula 6th, I had some kids from Nutley on the team. And sometimes, if I meet a kid nowadays, I'm an old man, and I have to remember, did I have him at Nutley or did I have him at Paula 6th? And that's a true story. Sometimes I'll say, the ones that you really know, the kids that were your starters, but you run across a kid, and I know them, and most of the times I can come up with their names, but I just can't remember, was he at Nutley or was he at Paula 6th?
Who were your coaching influences?
Vince Lombardi. Of course, I'm a kid growing up in the 60s when Vince Lombardi is the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, plus he was Italian. Vince Lombardi was it, and he was a tough cookie. I read his book. He had 2 books. I read them both. Second Place is for Losers. That wasn't the name of the book, but that was one of the big lines. And so he was my biggest influence. And like I said, I was very impressed with the fact that I played for guys like Orby Lewis and Joe Basaha. But as far as coaching techniques and philosophy and what I read about Vince and what I saw on the television, it was Vince Lombardi.
Isn't it sad that you can't coach like Vince Lombardi anymore? You never go in this day and age.
That's true. You can't coach like I coached or like Vince Lombardi coached. And I'm a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher, and Tom Linnell, they've been successful. And I have a friend of mine whose son became a Steelers fan only because he was growing up in the 70s and they were always winning.
Yeah.
But I liked the Pittsburgh Steelers when Bobby Lane was the quarterback in 1958. And to coach now, you have to have a lot of patience. You have to have a very tough shell. You always had to have a tough shell, but it's more now with technology, and everybody has a cell phone, and if one word is said out of line or taken out of context, it means people's careers. I'm not a big fan of how that happened, even in education. So the old-fashioned teachers that were writing on the blackboards no longer around. Those days are gone. You guys accepted it because that's what it was.
Yeah.
You were getting discipline on the field, but you were getting discipline at home.
Exactly.
You're not getting any discipline at home. You're sure as hell not going to take it from somebody that's, not your mother or your father, And your father probably thinks he knows more than the coach anyhow.
In 1975, you went from phys ed teacher to Nutley media coordinator. What did that entail?
Yeah, it was all brand new. Things were just starting to change. Technology really hadn't come in, but I guess there was a lot more media that was involved. People were using more film strips, films. There were a lot of educational movies. We actually had a high school, Thomasina Highland and Larry Zaki taught film and mass media. So there was a lot of input, and they needed it had already started the year or 2 years before I was there. They had someone with the job, and then he left to go elsewhere. Mr. Stein it was. And then I came in, and actually Mr. Fowler said, "Joe, you sure you want this job?" I said, "Well, can I still coach?" He said, "Yeah, you'll still be able to coach." He said, "But won't you miss teaching?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to give this a shot. I've been teaching at the elementary school for 9 years. I'd like to get to the high school." So it was a way to get into the high school, and it was a different job entirely.
Then you became the Nutley athletic director in 1997. What was that like?
It opened. I applied for it, and I got it. Joe Zara was Joe Zara the principal at the time, or Mario Cacciola? I think it was Mario. It was Mario Cacciola was the principal, and I applied for the athletic director's job. I had credentials by that point. I'd been head coach in 2 sports. I had coached for close to 30 years, so I thought I knew what I was doing. and so I became the AD. But the first year I got it, nothing seemed to go perfectly smoothly. They added 2 new sports. They added lacrosse and ice hockey. And without saying anything too wrong, I would remember a lot of athletic directors saying, "Oh, Joe, if you're getting lacrosse and ice hockey, they're trouble sports." They said, especially ice hockey. And not anything with the kids or the sport itself, but the sport is off-site. So you're not going to have as much control, and wherever you go, and then because you're off-site, then you don't have as much control over the kids. You know, you can't tell a kid he can't come to the Montclair State arena. You don't have the authority to say that. And they were difficult times. The first year in ice hockey was a tough year, not because of the sport, but the controlling of outside influences. Then of course you always had parents complaining about coaches and so forth. That was always a problem. But I stuck most of the time. I can't remember giving in to too many. But I always felt I was fair. If you had a valid point, I would listen to it. But if I thought I was right, I stayed with my choice.
Then you stepped up to become the Nutley vice principal in 2000, which lasted to your retirement in 2007. And then you were brought back as an interim vice principal in 2008 to 2010. What was that experience like as a vice principal?
A lot of people said, "You sure you want this job?" And I said, "Why? It's more money." I still had a family to raise and still had kids in college at the time. It was more money. And I loved being the AD. But it was a lot of night work. You had basketball games at night, ice hockey at night, Saturday games, obviously for football, which I always did anyhow, which didn't matter. But then you had, after school, you had to stay around for the baseball games, the soccer games. So you were there. It was a long day. And you were still starting at the same time as everybody else. So you were starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:45 I would get there. And you wouldn't leave until after school, till the baseball game or soccer match or whatever it was over. So you're there every night to 6 o'clock. And then in the winter, you get a break. You can go home for supper, and then you're coming back for wrestling and basketball at night from 7 to 10 or whatever. So I thought I was ready for a change. And the first year I got the vice principal job, I said, "What a dumbass I am." I said, "This is not a job that's going to have much enjoyment to it."
You were in charge of discipline, were you not?
I was in charge of discipline, so it was fights I was in charge of a lot of things. There was 2 vice principals, myself and Greg Catchabone, and we got along very well. And Joe Zara was, good to work with, and Mario at that time had left, so you had more than one area to cover. I had discipline, parking assignments. Nothing that was fun. Parking was always a problem. Kids parking, teachers parking, discipline, substitute teachers, student teachers. So it was a tough job. And I said, I made a mistake here, I thought in the beginning. But over the time, like anything else, you get your feet wet. And confrontation, as I got older, wasn't really a problem.
Okay, I'm going to show you some photos now. Tell me what your thoughts are on each one.
This is John Federici's group. That's my first coaching job. Me, Carmen DeLoya, Larry Zacchi, Mario Cacciola, Bill Farkas, and John Federici. And like I said, I took Carmen and Larry with me to Paula 6th.
Did you get along with Federici?
Yeah, well, I was a freshman, freshman coach, and that was my first year coaching. I was a newcomer, and he was a little intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good coach, though, right?
He was a good
I
coach.
don't remember him, but
He was a good coach.
yeah.
It was intimidating.
Yeah.
You better, if you went scouting, you better be able to answer the questions he asked.
Right.
Or it was going to be what to pay for. That's Rich Pawlowski. That's Rich Pawlowski at the end. And this is basically the same staff, except Richie is now on the staff. That's my year 2.
Did you guys hang out, or was it strictly just business?
Well, we had Monday. I knew Carmen.
Yeah.
And I became very friendly with Larry over the years. So over the years, my relationship with Carmen and Larry, they came with me with Paul VI. So, but Danny Kimberly and I still stay in touch by phone. Bill Farkas and I both belong to an athletic retired athletic club that they raise funds for needy kids for athletics and so forth. So
Well,
we
we
really
went so
didn't hang out much together. But I did spend more social time with Carmen and Larry. What year is this? This must be your year.
That's my year.
Wow. That's Coach Keating.
Yep.
Big mustache. And, wow. Little kids.
Can you find me?
Number 12, that's you.
That's
Number
me.
12. Holy crow. Yeah, well, the hair, you know what? That's the hairstyles we're starting. Oh, this is my team. Yeah.
That's the championship team, right?
Pardon me?
That's the championship team, correct?
Yes, that is.
What goes through your mind when you see that?
Oh, boy, I see Pete Bevere. Boy, that kid could hit. He hit for power. Wasn't a consistent hit, but he can hit for power. We had a game against Belleville. Well, this is 1990. Larry Mose was pitching, so it was the year after, 91. Larry Mose gets in trouble in the first inning. I go out to the mound, and Mike Tremblay says, "You could take me out, Coach?" I said, "No. You're the best pitcher we had. You had one inning." I said, "I hope you warmed up well enough." I said, "We're going to come back and win this game." And we were down 8-0. We won the game 18-8.
Wow.
And Peter Bevere hit a shot we're at Belleville. And what a shot it was. It was a 3-run home run. We wound up beating them 18-8. Yeah, but this team here, this picture is the one that won the state section.
All right.
That's good memories.
Who's this guy?
Oh my God. I remember that. That was a VCR, a videotape recorder back then. I mean, now, obviously there's no even more VCRs, but we went from here to VCRs, to CDs, to now what, iPods and everything else.
How old do you think you are in that picture?
Well, it's got to be after 1975, so, and then we're still using that machine, so it's got to be in my first 3 years, 75, 76, 77.
Yeah.
How do you think high school sports has changed since you started back in the 60s?
Well, like I said, first of all, now kids pretty much want to play one sport and they train all year for one sport, which I don't think is the best thing. You're not getting a well-rounded outlook on life and sports in general, but that's what's come to. I mean, and kids are bigger now than ever, healthier, stronger. They have T-shirts now, bigger, faster, stronger, and it's true.
I think one thing that's missing, and I think a lot of us feel this way, that we've lost a lot of the traditions. Back in the day, we used to have rivalries with Belleville and Columbia and Bloomfield and Westfield. Of course, Westfield, who were our biggest enemies, I think, back then. All those things, the Thanksgiving games, all those things are gone now. Why do you think that is, and do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Now they rotate the schedule by the strength of your schedule. If you have a good year, you're playing tough teams the next year. If you have a lousy year, you're playing all weak schools. There's those traditions are gone. There's no more Thanksgiving Day games. That's the biggest crime in high school football, that there is no more Thanksgiving football games. Going into the Oval for football games was some kind of feeling. And every once in a while they put a switch on you. When I first started coaching in Nutley, we sat on the first base side for bleachers. Then we went to the left field side, and then he went back one other time. And but the Oval was a great place. And you're probably not going to like what I'm going to say now. When they take natural grass away, it bothers me. So, but because of funds and money and so forth, now is the Oval for football. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful field. It's not natural grass. You don't get muddy or dirty. Which is something I always liked. With kids in your age group, I can remember making you do drills where you did cross body blocks down the field into the mud and so forth. Nobody gets dirty. You don't even get grass stains anymore.
Oh, I remember those up downs in the mud. I remember specifically after losing to Belleville 26-0 on a Friday afternoon, you had us come in on Saturday morning at 6 a.m., do up downs, killers, you name it, in the mud. It's something that I think every one of us on a team will never forget.
I had a couple of teams do that. Well, I always did that, even at Paul VI. If we got beat, and I felt that we did our best, and But if we got beaten, it was a team that I didn't want us to beat, or that I felt that we should have won the game. Saturday, 6 o'clock morning practices were. I've done that more than once. At more than one school.
Okay, now it's time for our quick hits. I'm going to give you a phrase or a name, and you just tell me what comes to mind. Favorite Jersey Shore town?
Well, it used to be Wildwood, and now I would say it's the Lavalette area.
Any reason why?
Because we don't go to Wildwood anymore, because we go to Lavalette area.
Frank Sinatra or Frankie Valli?
They're both great, but I'm a Rudy Valley fan. But over Sinatra, I like Dean Martin. I was always a Dean Martin guy. When the Rat Pack was around, I was a Dean Martin guy. Frankie Valli was super. When I got married, I told my wife we're picking a song, and then I gave her a couple of choices. Either was a Dean Martin song or a Frankie Valli song. So.
And what was it?
Well, she took Dean Martin because she said, you don't know enough about dancing. She said, the Frankie Valli song you pick, you have to cha-cha. She said, so what the Dean Martin song.
Giants or Jets?
Neither one. I like the Giants probably better than the Jets, but I'm a Steeler fan.
Okay.
And I was a Steeler fan since my father was a Steeler fan. My father's originally from Pittsburgh. When we grew up, everybody was talking about Mickey Mantle and, Willie Mays, who were great ball players, and never deny that. But my father was talking about Ralph Kiner. So the kids thought I was crazy, even through high school. How can you like the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Who's your favorite coach from a movie or a TV show?
Well, I always used to like the TV show Coach. It was good. It was funny.
Coach, you've been retired for some time now, but do you ever miss coaching?
Well, I'm an old man now, but when I first got out, yes. When I started to become the athletic director and the VP and I couldn't coach, actually I wanted to continue to coach when I was the VP. But by that point they said, how you're doing the job, how big it's getting and so forth, and it became tough. So, but if I hadn't become the athletic director, I would have continued to coach.
Now, when you watch games, do you still coach in your head?
Yeah. Well, I would have done this, I would have done that. It's second guess, but you know what? There's no really right or wrong ways, and if it works, it's right. If it doesn't work, well, then you did the wrong choice. That's it.
What was it about Nutley that kept you here all those years, all 40 years? In
Nutley, I had a lot of chance for change. I wasn't stagnant. I started off in teaching 2 schools. And then, like I said, when Vietnam came and they hired the other teacher, then I was into 1 school. So I went from knowing teachers at Radcliffe and Spring Garden, then it was just Radcliffe. Then I came to the high school. Then I became the athletic director. Then I became the vice principal. So there was always another progression. The jobs were different. You met different people. I was kind of lucky. Mostly all my jobs at the high school, media, AD, and VP, I got to meet everybody. It wasn't you were just meeting the kids that came to you for math. You were meeting kids that came to you from history. I had kids from all different sports when I was the AD. When I was coaching, I knew all the football, all the baseball kids, and they all played more than one sport back in those days, so I knew them from basketball or whatever else. And then girls' sports came in, and obviously, Teresa Rubash, Anna Melnick, they were great coaches, and I got to meet the girls, and so there was always a lot. When I became vice principal, the teachers were, you had to have the teachers on your side because all you were doing was dealing with their discipline problems. So, and it actually became, by the end, the VP job, I really enjoyed it because the teachers supported you and you supported them. It was good. But I stayed in Nutley because there was always change. I was very comfortable there. And if you're comfortable, you stay. And like I said, the kids were great. When I coached, you're not everyone's going to like you. But I feel confident in myself that I would say 75% of the kids that played for me appreciated and liked playing for me. Not everybody, obviously. And the same thing with the parents. Obviously, 75% of the kids are happy, and 75% of the parents are happy.
Coach, I've been in town for almost 65 years. I've played for, coached against, and coached with dozens of coaches. I have many friends who have gone much further than me in coaching and playing. Yet to this day, the vast majority of them say the greatest coach they ever played for was Joe Affinito. I mean, I played 1 season for you over 50 years ago, and I have written articles about you, and now I am here interviewing you. Does it ever occur to you how much impact you've had on so many?
It's a great feeling. And when I run into people like you and other people that I've kept contact with, and they talk about the old days, the old coaching stories, whether they were a player or a coach, brings great memories. So when I was coaching at Paula 6th. We used to eat lunch right out here this was a patio at that point, with the coaching staff and laugh. And coaching brings so much camaraderie, whether it's with your players and with your coaches. It's just, coaching is great. It's just a great thing for unity.
Coach, you've always been a humble man when it comes to compliments, even 50 years down the road.
It makes me feel great, and I do think about it. And like I said, I think about it when guys like you, kids that I've had in the past, talk about it. And I've had, without mentioning more names, and like I said, I hope the rest I don't get in trouble. But I had one coach that went on to be another head coach at another school, and he was invited as a guest lecturer to a coaching clinic. And when he attributed what he learned from me, man, it makes you feel great. Makes you feel great. And there's always Paul Brown from the Cleveland Browns. He had a coaching tree that followed him. And I can always say that I started Stephen DiGregorio with his first coaching job. Mario Peluso with his first coaching job. Tommy Basile, who actually coached for me at Paula 6th and coached a little bit at Nutley, he gave him his first coaching job. So Vito Cucci, who coached for me at Paula 6th, I gave him his first coaching job. So to see those guys, and I still have contact with them, and when I still have kids call me up on Father's Day to say, Coach, happy Father's Day, that's top draw.
Doesn't get better than that, right?
Not better.
What are you most proud of?
My family.
Coach Joe Affinito.
Thank you for being you. Thank you for joining us on Inside Nutley. It's been a great
pleasure.
trip
I really
down
enjoyed it.
memory lane.
Very much.